I'm really interested in the paint as a material substance. I think about the components, the solids and the liquids, and when interactions happen between the anatomy of some kind of painting substance with another that I've never seen before, to me those are the most fulfilling parts of the studio practice. My name is Dickey, and I'm a 2023 artist in resident at the Sam and Adele Golden Foundation for the Arts. This is actually my first time in several years using acrylics at all, because my practice at home is more focused on earth-based binders. So animal glues, rabbit skin glue, hide glue, cracking eggs, using the egg white as an emulsifier to combine oil and egg. This is something I'm actually really excited about because I was just doing this yesterday, and in conversation with paint technician Mike, in his testing of it, he found that if you keep the pastel ground wet for a long period of time, like basically keep spritzing it with water, it separates out from the binders, so you get this crystalline, almost looks like a mineral deposit that starts to happen on the surface. Since the fall of 2021, I've been really focused on the five-pointed star as a way of imposing shapes on the canvas. My work is very flowy and organic, and I've been using that hard edge shape as a way to break up these organic flows and kind of contain them. And when I came here, I decided to get rid of that shape. And so being in this room with this corner window, I was putting things up here just sort of for storage. And then I started noticing that it was really highlighting the stretcher bars behind the painting. And as the light would move, this rectangular shape will shrink, and sometimes the fabric that's behind it will create more of an uneven edge. So I felt like the paintings were sort of generating these shapes from within. There was something about this idea of like light being this fleeting thing and the materials having disorder or movements that are outside of my control, that there's something beautiful about something that's in this world now and won't be in the future. I feel really lucky to have been here with Emily and Natasha. They're just really open and warm about having conversations around painting and get some really good feedback because I value and trust the opinions of the other artists here. They love paint like I do, so that's really amazing to be able to like talk to someone that shares that value.
My name is Natasha Campbell, and I am a 2023 artist in resident at the Sam and Adele Golden Foundation for the Arts. I started doing self-portraits a couple years ago, and when I started it was really just a process of kind of getting to know myself more, where I have my place in art because I didn't study it in school. Self-portraits really became a way of being present and like carving my face figuratively and literally. Self-portraits is where I find myself really comfortable. I used the many mirrors around the room and was just like kind of looking, placing a paper down. When I came here, at first I was going to do collaging and oil painting and just kind of explore there. But I really found collaging started becoming my usual practice. Collaging, I found a little bit more freedom when it comes to picking out color and then finding shapes. Going outside or like going around my studio, looking at a shape and just being like, oh, I like that shape, and then popping it down on like a board or a piece of paper. And so it was very, very freeing. When I start a collage, I will find the shape that I like and I kind of draw it. I'll start thinking about like the lights in the area, the darks in the area, the midtones, based on like what colors I have. The darks won't always be the dark thing. I became obsessed with that mirror. And so I started doing like many iterations of the mirrors and the windows. Just keep doing it and then keep abstracting. What can I turn this shape into? Can I turn this into not a mirror? Or can I turn this into something else? And so sometimes they'll start looking like a cloud, especially like on the image transfers. I was walking around the whole barn and I was just like, okay, well, I'll just find an object or find a shape that I really like. And I was just chasing the light that was moving around the barn in the studio. This was actually the hallway near the apartments. The light was coming through the edge of the door and was like leaning against the rocks. And I was like, oh, that's beautiful. I was just like trying to like work as quick as possible. And I think that uninhibited quickness really helped me get out of the mental rut that I was really feeling, because I changed my environment and also just changed the way I process. Like if I thought too much about it, the light will go away. So the printmaking, I wanted to try a new medium, but then I got a little bit overwhelmed with like, okay, how does this connect to my usual practice? What is like the thread through all of these different mediums? And so I had a mirror set up here, and I was just doing stencils as self-portrait, and then would make prints of it. I just kind of got really lost in the process of just print, print, print. And it wasn't until I was like overwhelmed with like 4 tables of prints that I was like, okay, well, what am I doing? And so I got a lot of help from Emily and Jan trying to figure out like, okay, like what am I trying to say? What am I trying to create with all these prints? And so I really took the time putting everything down and just like seeing, okay, what story do they make all together?
My work is visually abstract, but I'm very often referencing the figures and compositions of historical figurative paintings, pulling the shapes and the gestures of the figures and using them in my pieces. And I just hope that emotion, those themes will come through to the viewer, and then the viewer can access that with their own references in whatever way is necessary for them. My name is Emily Gerard. I am a 2023 artist in residence at the Sam and Adele Golden Foundation for the Arts. When I got here, I got kind of overwhelmed by all the amazing materials. I love to experiment with materials and push it to its limits and find an unexpected way to use it. I feel like sometimes I look for that thing that's like an opening for just me, and it felt like these pan pastels had room for me to come up with a new way to apply them. And so I started doing these drawings on UPO, and they had this like beautiful, subtle color where they shift from cool to warm just by the way you kind of build and layer them. These works are pretty low contrast. A lot of my work deals with color in not this like nameable red, blue, yellow, but on this kind of more subtle temperature shift. I was really inspired by the way the watercolors layered on the micaceous iron oxide. I've done lots of like playing around with layering different kind of colors so I can get these like kind of subtle shifts in temperature. Seeing which colors lift really well, how these colors layer, how the pigment kind of relaxes into the surface. I play around a lot with cedar, and in that I embed cedar in plaster to kind of bring out the tannins and make a ghost drawing out of the tannins. And one of the most amazing things about working with the team here at Golden is that they're not like teaching you how to use the materials. They're kind of informing you about the materials. So you could see that they were just as excited about the fact that these discolorations were coming out. There's this like constant curiosity of how do we break this material? How do we manipulate this material? My time at Golden has been amazing because I've been exposed to lots of different materials and techniques and combinations. And after the technicals, I would come in and try to at least get my hands on a couple of those ideas, even if it was in a small way, where I just make a couple marks to hold that process and that technique with the idea that I can kind of come back to it years later. There is a feeling that's set up by Golden of sharing ideas that kind of starts right at the beginning, where you go and you meet with the technicians and the paint makers and they're artists themselves, and their enthusiasm and generosity is really inspiring, and you can kind of see that then coming back to the residency, in which myself, Jan, and Natasha are all going to each other's studios and seeing what we tried and getting excited about each other's work, and that's been monumental.